these guys in Ben Avon Heights died in the air. Now, I didn't know much about these guys from World War II. And that to me is very sad. I didn't want just names to be on a plaque. I wanted to know what was behind them. Now this is Lynn Hoffman. He graduated in '61. That's a quote from the yearbook, a Fast and Furious fullback. Bob Taylor coached football after he graduated, but he had quite a reputation. And I talked to a guy that lived up in Mount Nebo. He's a little younger, and he said he was a big, powerful guy. Very likable, looks like a likable guy. 3 years of football, 3 years of basketball, 3 years of baseball at Avonworth. So, Lynn Hoffman goes to Slippery Rock. He plays football. He's a linebacker. He's number 42, that's him. In on the tackle. I called the Slippery Rock Athletic Department. They sent me team pictures. I mean, really unbelievable. Now, he joins the Air Force. I talked to a guy named Tom Kelly. Tom Kelly was in pilot training. There were 40 guys in their pilot training class, 2 were killed. Learning to fly military aircraft. They weren't flying these jets either like this. They were flying training jets. 2 of them were killed in training. Lynn was one of the best pilots in their class. He aced everything, he said. He went to his wedding, which he described as a happy day. Very few of them got into fighters. Everybody wants to go to fighters. They're like Ferraris. So he's flying these F-100 Super Sabres. They're a supersonic aircraft. And he's at Bien Hoa, which is about 10 miles, 15 miles from Saigon. And he comes in one night. He's been in Vietnam about 2 months. And he's got a full bomb load. Lands the plane, skids off the runway into a minefield. You can figure out the rest. So I couldn't find anybody yet from his fighter squadron, but I will. There's a really good Super Sabre website, and they had, I'm going to dig into that, but I couldn't find anybody. So he's born in February 1943, Avonworth 61, Slippery Rock 65, arrived in June 6th, July 22nd was killed. Now, this is on thevirtualwall.com. For everybody who's killed in Vietnam, they have a site like this. And he's got his pilot's wings up there. He's got Purple Heart, Air Medal, National Defense Service Ribbon, Vietnam Campaign, and the green and white one was awarded by the Republic of Vietnam to Americans who fought there. Okay? I don't know how many missions he had, but it's just very sad. Now, Slippery Rock, for the MVP of the football game, of the homecoming game, they call it the Lynn Hoffman Award. Or they did. I said, I noticed on this it only goes up to 2012. And the guy said, yeah, we would give that out at the team banquets. We don't have a team banquet anymore. You're going to hear from me. Okay? No, because that's ridiculous. Why wouldn't you give, just if you call it the MVP award, I mean, just for motivation's sake. I can't understand that. I found his grave a couple of weeks ago. He's about 600 yards from where he grew up. That's the way the grave was. The Air Force flag, and the American flag were on it. Now, Toby Hopkins. I got a lot of interesting stuff from people who served with Toby. And I never knew Toby, but I remember seeing him. I never knew any of these guys. But I was playing baseball at the playground at Ben Avon Heights, and I remember Ned Lohr and Cabby Stick were there. And they graduated in '65, Toby graduated in '63. And a lot of older kids, and this car pulled up and this guy got out, and everybody yelled, "Hey, Toby," and they all seemed to like him, glad to see him. They stopped the game, they talked to him, we got in the car and left. So that's probably around 65-ish, I think. I'm not sure. But that was Toby Hopkins. He lived up on Upper Forest. Played football, basketball, and evidently baseball was his real sport. He was evidently an excellent baseball player. Had something in the yearbook, wants to play for the Pirates. So, Toby goes to Penn State, and he gets into ROTC, and he graduates in '67. On July 12th, '68, he lands in Vietnam. Now, the two, Toby, Lynn Hoffman, they died in '68. We lost over 16,000 men in '68 in Vietnam. We lost 11 and some in '67 and 11 and some in '69. And it started to tail off after that. But Toby is with Kilo Battery, 12th Marines, and he's here at Camp Carroll. Okay, I'll move over here so these folks can see he's at Camp Carroll. And he's an artillery officer, and this was a big fire base, and this shaded area is the DMZ. In other words, that's North Vietnam. And they had guns there that could fire into North Vietnam. Now, Toby got there July 12th. On 1 August, they're going to take a Jeep and go from Camp Carroll to Con Thien. A friend of mine, Dan Teller, was a Marine officer at Con Thien in '67, maybe '66. He gets there the first day, and they say, take a number of helicopters, go out, pick up 85 dead Marines. This was a really bad place. So they're going to take the Jeep and they're going to go up to Con Thien to pick up a payroll. That's about 20 miles. Now, that's like sending you to the worst part of the city of Pittsburgh. You got a quart of milk, in my opinion. I don't know why they wouldn't fly the payroll in, but they did. So, this man, Lieutenant Bob Parsons, he's going to go up in the Jeep. This guy, Dolan, he's a Marine enlisted man. He's in the Jeep. There's somebody else in it too. Toby tells Parsons, I'll go. And I talked to Bob Parsons for a long time. And they really rallied around the Scott's family, I got to tell you. They switched places. Toby gets in the Jeep. So, this guy's in the back. He was in the front. Military protocol, the officer rides shotgun. The Lance Corporal gets in the back seat, and there's a driver. This is Doc Ween. His wife contacted me. He's got a brain tumor, can't really talk. But we developed an alumni association out of the 12th Marines. He was really instrumental. All these guys gave him a lot of credit. He also was on the scene. And what happened, the Jeep gets to Pontiac, comes back, crosses this creek bed, and there's a command detonated mine. And it pretty much went off with the right passenger tire. The other two guys are blown out of the Jeep. I talked to his company commander, Al Sullivan. I talked to Bob Barsness. They felt he died on the scene. But, you know, in any event, he's sent to the USS Repos by helicopter. It was an 800-bed hospital ship off the coast. And, you know, he doesn't make it. So, I talked to the woman that lived next door. The Hopkins moved from Ben Avon to the Hamptons. And I talked to a woman, Dottie Firestone. She was the next door neighbor. And she was about 25. She had a 1-year-old. She said Toby would come home from Penn State and play with the little boy. She really liked him. She described him as the all-American boy. Said he got along great with his parents. They loved him. And she's at home cooking or something, and the Marine knocks on her door. And he'd already been with Mrs. Hopkins. He said, could you come over and help this lady? She's taking it tough. I did talk to a guy. He was a retired lieutenant colonel, Al Reesaver. He was Toby's best friend at Penn State. He got him a Marine. And Reese Harbor was in the 1st Marine Division at Da Nang. That would be south of where these guys were in the 3rd Division. There's about 20,000 guys in the Marine Division. And he was in the headquarters company in the main communications department. He saw Toby's casualty number. Took my wife to the airport Friday. On the way back, I stopped by his grave at Sharon Presbyterian Church. And I got to tell you, that's the way it looked. Nice American flag. Number of veterans' graves marked like that. I saw one that was a Span Am War veteran with a flag in that kind of condition and a Civil War flag. So they do a nice job taking care of the military graves there. And so he's buried out of Heritage Presbyterian Church on Rochester Road. And another woman named Dottie Fouts, who had a lot of information, she got me in touch with all these people. She had photographed the one on the left with the plaque. And that's an altar at this outdoor chapel where they had his funeral. Well, I went there Friday. Come on. So the church called me today and said, we have it. We rebuilt this thing. It's going back. So I was glad to hear that. That's what his roommate said. I think about Toby. Grieshauber spent 23 years in the active Marines, and he had told me he had done casualty duty, and it's pretty tough. But I don't know who that girl is. Pardon? Sue Shannon? Was she in his class? Yeah. So, but Grieshauber and Toby dated twins at Penn State. At least they thought they were. But that picture with the baseball, it's actually a snowball, and it's a softball bat. Okay? And I like that. I like that. Dick McCormick. Now, I didn't know Dick, but I knew who he was. I would see him up at the pool at Shannon, and I remember he should have been a wrestler. He had the build and the clean, just lean muscle, no body fat, and just real efficient. And he He was, you can see he was born November 1246, 64 Avonworth, captain of the football team. Okay? Now I've been told by Bruce Hoffman, who is, if you want to know anything about Avonworth sports, that's the guy to ask. He was a fierce, nasty guy on the football field. Bob Taylor told me a great story about him, that they were playing at Coriolis, which always had great teams. And I was at that game with the Wars. And we were over at Coriolis. Anyhow, they didn't win. And they were getting beat pretty bad. And they came in the half. And Dick was one of the first guys to come in. And he smashed his helmet against the locker. And he came up and thought, Coach, I broke my helmet. Don't worry about it. The hand was bleeding. I'll get you a new one. So Al Schreiber, the head coach, came in. And he, gives his halftime talk. And you're leading to go on the field. Dick goes up and he goes, Coach, I need a helmet. He goes, wait a minute. Look at McCormick. He's playing so hard, he broke his helmet. Why don't all you other guys play like him? And I guess you never told the truth. That to me is a great story. But here you go. Now, there he is. I don't know if he's chewing out Al Schreiber or Al Schreiber's chewing out him. But there he is. He's captain of the football team. Who do you think that is next to him? Who said Denny Edmonds? Well, that's Mercury Morris. And that's Ned Moore, who I knew. I think that's Mark Holstein. Did he play? No. It looks like him. But I knew Ned very well. His brother John was like my best friend, a good friend of Bruce's. But, when you look at these helmets compared to stuff today, these things, one generation above leather. But when you're captain of the football team, you got to go up. Sandy Kreger, I knew the name. Where did she live? Where, Bruce?
Ridge Avenue.
Ridge, yeah. I knew that name. So, Dick goes off to Vietnam. That's his sister, to his left, Linda, his mom, his sister, Joanne, who was in my class, and I believe Froggy Langell, who was married to your older sister. So, Dick, he's wearing sergeant stripes. Now, what he did, all these guys, I should have said this earlier, they were all leaders. They were leaders in the military. They were leaders in life. So, Dick gets drafted. You do about 10 weeks of basic training. Then you go to what they call AIT, Advanced Individual Training. And he's a cannon crew member. Now, during the Vietnam War, they had a program where they would pull guys who did well in training, maybe some college, weren't screwballs, that kind of stuff, and they would send them to non-commissioned officer school for about another 10 weeks, and you'd come out a sergeant. The nickname for that was Shake and Bake. So he had proven himself in training that he had some leadership potential. So he's sent to Vietnam in March. He's assigned at Alpha Battery, 8th Battalion, 6th Artillery, 1st Infantry Division, a.k.a. the Big Red One. And he's stationed at a place called Firebase Gila. And the Big Red One was down in the southern part of Vietnam, but I talked to a man that served with him, Doug Skinner. He also was a Shake and Bake. And they got there at about the same time. And he was the communications sergeant for the battery. There's about 100 men in an artillery battery, 6 guns. They had 155mm howitzer, pretty big. And you've been in school, it's like when you get a new teacher or a new substitute, they are tested. They are tested. And Doug Skinner said Dick did a great job. Guys liked him, respected him. He was in charge of one of the guns. There were 6 crew members on the gun, on each one of these guns. And they, I'll read the citation in a moment, but so he goes over there, he's a new guy, and he proves himself. Now, I met with his sister, Linda McCormick Taylor, and her husband, Bob Taylor. Bob coached Dick in high school, and they were very good friends. And Linda showed me at the end of our talk this shadow box with these medals. I said, whoa. And she was kind of nonchalant. I said, do you know what that is? And I said, that's a silver star. I said, that's a big deal. So, and Doug Skinner said he was there a year. That was the worst combat he saw, the night of May 12th. But it just says, the encampment was subjected to a vicious rocket mortar barrage, followed by a massive ground attack. Ignoring impacting rounds, Sergeant McCormick ensured his men had reached the security of their bunker when he detected the sound of automatic weapons advancing toward his position. He inspired his element to move to their howitzer section and prepare to place devastating fire on the insurgents. Now, Army doctrine, a leader is 2 things to do: complete the mission, the welfare of the men. He did both. He did both. So he's awarded a Silver Star, and he's also got a Bronze Star. So one thing I told Linda and her husband, soldiers and sailors, they have a Hall of Valor, and it's for Silver Star winners on up. So we need to make arrangements for that. It's a slam dunk. And then there's your fun. Who was this guy with?
He said he knew Dick.
You gave me the name of the guy from the Carolinas. I don't, we'll talk about that. That's the house on Delso, and where the McCormicks live. And they put a flagpole up in the back to honor their son. I'm sorry, thank you. Thank you. Any questions? Let me just say one thing. I got to thank some people. I want to thank Pam Wells for giving me pictures and information on her uncle Wally Kappel. Deborah Fouts, Lieutenant Bob Barsness, Major Hal Sullivan, Kilo Battery, 3rd Battalion, 12th Marines, and Al Reeshaver, Lieutenant Colonel Al Reeshaver, who was Tony's roommate, Linda McCormick Taylor and her husband Bob Taylor, sister and great friend of Dick McCormick, and Sergeant Doug Skinner, who served with him at Camp Gila, Fire Base Gila, and Tracy Ferguson for opening up the archives and helping me get stuff. Sorry I got a little emotional there, but it's an emotional thought. Thank you.
Rob. Get the portrait
Of Wally Kappel?
of the guy, yeah.
I don't know where it is.
It has to exist, wouldn't you think?
I would think.
Oh, that would be cool as heck.
Jimmy might have it, Jimmy Kappel. He had the house. When the house was sold, he owned it. Is that correct? Jimmy owned the house, right?
Yes,
Yeah. He might.
Okay, the dude that flew the P-40 Warhawk, okay. That is the same plane that they flew to Guadalcanal, to Guadalcanal to defend it? Like, was that the squadron type, was that the airplane type that flew out to?
They probably had some there. The Cactus Air Force at Guadalcanal, when Guadalcanal was under siege, they had an airfield there. And the Marines figured out pretty quickly if you wanted air support or needed it, you get your own. So the Marines were flying a lot of Dauntlesses. Yeah, and Hellcats and later Wildcats.
So he crashes he goes MIA or he crashes?
I couldn't find any, but he's missing in action, so he's probably somewhere.
Right.
He was stationed in Hawaii when he was lost.
Was that his plane? Was that his plane?
P-40s. The 73rd had P-40s. Later, after he died, they got P-47s, which had a longer range.
Okay, how about the dude that just went down the Pacific in the bomber?
B-24?
Was that abnormal?
Well, if you saw the movie Unbroken, that was a B-24 that went down, okay? And the B-24 had a wing called the Davis wing, and it was a very tricky plane to fly. And the thing about these planes, and I don't know much about aviation, but a lot of them were cable controlled. So you had to strong arm. There's no hydraulics on them. It's like a manual transmission and manual steering. You get a real road feel. So flying was very, very dangerous.
Hello. So Rob, last thing, the dude in Vietnam who was a 155 shooter. So does he lower his guns to human level and
To
fire?
the best of my knowledge, no. Now, what Doug Skinner told me, the NBA destroyed one gun. And
He's one of six.
one of six. And he said, and they have 105s there too, but the battery, A battery was all 155s. The next day, 2 sky cranes came in. One took the scrap gun out, right behind it was a brand new gun. So they went right back in business. But
But some action with those cannons gave him the Silver Star.
well, I think it